Hello and welcome to the Whoniverse and to a brand new video. Now we can all agree the Daleks are perhaps Doctor Who's most iconic and feared villain throughout time and space, as they conquered planets and slaughtered billions throughout the cosmos. However, what would this race of hate-driven squids in an armoured weaponised travel machine do if there was just one left? One that became the last of its kind? Was it capable of humanity or just pure evil? This is the history of the Metaltron Dalek, the battered survivor of the last Great Time War. So this Dalek is from the last Great Time War, a conflict that tore through the universe and time itself, with the Daleks of Skaro fighting the Time Lords of Gallifrey. Both forces grew more and more ruthless with each battle, and even the Doctor began to abandon his promises and morals, becoming the War Doctor. Now this bronze-armoured Dalek would fight in the Battle of Arcadia, towards the end of the seemingly endless war. Now Arcadia was Gallifrey's best defended city bar the capital, with 400 sky trenches. However, this was nothing to the might of the Dalek Empire as the creatures of Skaro began their attack. The Metaltron Dalek, which had never seen battle before the Battle of Arcadia, and the rest of its squad, which were designated to be amongst the first casualties, anticipating the battle to be a great victory that would end in Arcadia's conquest, the squad's current commander nonetheless warned them that the Doctor would be present. Even though the Metaltron realised it contradicted Dalek nature to fear, the commander ordered the squad to fear their greatest enemies, claiming that any Time Lord soldier they found could be the Doctor. The battle at Arcadia became a horrific sight that was filled with carnage, with broken bodies and Dalek casings left littered across the ground. As the Metaltron Dalek saw, bodies and casings were left broken in the dirt, smashed under rubble and cracked apart because of enemy fire. As such, dead Dalek mutants were visible through their shattered casings. The Metaltron's commander even was blasted apart by a staser blast, only for 3 Time Lords to be exterminated in retaliation, making the Dalek believe its officer's death had been useful for the war effort. The Metaltron Dalek saw and killed a number of Time Lords during the battle, and despite the promise that it would be amongst the first killed, the drone found itself alive and alone amid a city consumed by death, making the mutant fear it was the last of its kind as it picked through the rubble of Arcadia for eternal minutes. Unsure about whether the distant gunfire it heard was real or imaginary, the drone continued to feel fear until it sighted a Time Lord moving through the smoke, only for that Gallifreyan to spot it. It was in fact the Doctor, which the Dalek realised when it saw the warrior was unarmed and staring with contempt. Staring at each other for what felt like forever, but also a few seconds. The Dalek was so overcome with fear it was unable to shoot at its race's greatest foe, only for the Doctor, refusing to dignify the Dalek with so much as another glance, to vanish into the fog. The Doctor would decide that day the war should come to an end, and began a quest to steal a great weapon known as the Moment from the Time Lord Armoury, and begin a series of events that would end the Time War, whether it be the way he expected or not. Meanwhile, completely consumed by terror, the Dalek was left to fire aimlessly into the chaos, as it both tried to find it and tried to hide from the Doctor in a contradictory quest to exterminate him and be killed by him. As such, the drone stayed in the wreckage of Arcadia, moving through the fallen city's darkness until the ground gave way, and it fell for longer than it was supposed to be possible, falling through time, eventually crashing into the Ascension Islands located in the British Overseas Territories near St Helena in the South Atlantic Ocean, sometime in the 1960s. Now it was in this crater where the Dalek had plummeted to Earth that it sat for 3 days on fire and screaming. Was it in pain? Insanity? Fear? Or a combination of all three? We'll never know. What we do know is the Dalek was recovered by the military, where the battered exterminator was passed through private collections throughout the late 20th and early 21st century. The Dalek was put up for auction sometime around 2006, with UNIT aware of this and attempting to secure the Code D as they called it. However, UNIT's interests seemed to drive up the price, and already too high for them to reasonably afford. All this was discussed on a secure operations board on the UNIT website. It was out of their hands. So it fell into the wrong hands instead. Henry Van Statten, the multi-billionaire, was invited to a private auction over the internet. The entry fee to the website alone costed $1 million, although he easily could afford it due to the profits of his company, Geocomtex. UNIT lost track of the Dalek and it entered Utah, and Henry Van Statten placed it in a vault among his collection of alien artifacts. Lacking any idea on its name, Van Statten claimed that he came up with the name Metaltron. However, this was in fact an invention of Adam Mitchell, with Henry Van Statten initially calling it Pepperpotnik. Now, as the Metaltron made its way to Utah, Sven tidied up the museum in anticipation for its arrival. And when it did arrive, it was placed within the vault, in the cage. Placed in a windowless room, deep underground, restrained by tensile steel chains attached to stabilizing pillars. He instructed another of his staff, Simmons, to make the Metaltron talk. However, all that was achieved was the screams of pain from the heavily damaged Dalek, as it was tortured mercilessly. Van Statten needed help, so called in Yevgeny Kandinsky to study the creature. Kandinsky deduced only that what was seen was an artificial construct instead of a naturally evolved life form before touching the Dalek, being burnt alive as the Dalek tried to harvest him for fuel. Disappointed, the Dalek gave only a cry of rageful frustration. With the intention of reaching other Daleks, the Metaltron sent out a distress signal, which was detected by the Ninth Doctor and Rose Tyler. Initially unaware of the source of the distress signal, the Doctor came face to eyestalk with the Dalek, and having fought all the Daleks destroyed, he was truly shocked and horrified to find one alive. The Dalek was damaged, crippled with a vain attempt to move its gun to exterminate the Doctor, but had insufficient power to do so, and after a hostile and bitter conversation between them about the end of the Time War, the Doctor attempted to murder the Dalek, pulling a lever which sent electricity through its casing. The Doctor was stopped by Van Statten, with Simmons managing to turn the electricity off before the Dalek was destroyed. Upon meeting Rose, who had not witnessed the exchange between the Dalek and the Doctor, the Scarrowling seemed to be a harmless victim. Rose, in an attempt to comfort it, touched the right part of the Dalek's dome, and as she did so, the Dalek absorbed Artron energy, biomass, and DNA from her. The Dalek had realised that Rose had travelled in the TARDIS, and had picked up the Artron energy within it, allowing it to extrapolate the energy and use it to regenerate itself and escape the vault. The Dalek was restored to its full strength, a powerful killer and an intelligent one too, especially when the Dalek downloaded all the data available on the internet and killed Simmons, Bywater, DiMaggio, and numerous others. He pursued both Rose and Adam Mitchell through the Geocomtex facility as Van Statten's staff were slaughtered attempting to stop the Dalek. Over 200 of Van Statten's security were killed. However, when the Dalek cornered Rose, it was unable to kill her, as the human DNA that the once caged creature had absorbed from Rose had given the Dalek something truly frightening: emotions. The Metaltron Dalek had been infected with the human factor, and the Dalek and Rose finally made their way to Van Statten's office, where the Dalek cornered the businessman and demanded to know why he tortured his prized purchase. A terrified Van Statten admitted he just wanted the Dalek to talk. The Dalek then angrily stated to hear him talk while preparing to exterminate him. Rose, however, was able to stop the Dalek, as it hesitated and turned to Rose, pleading that the Metaltron didn't need to kill anymore, and asked what the Dalek wants, besides killing. The Dalek replied with a simple response: freedom. The Dalek and Rose travelled to the top floor of the base, where the Scarrowling blasted a hole in the ceiling and opened its battle armour to field the sunlight, revealing the Dalek mutant within. The Doctor then appeared, armed with an alien energy weapon, with the intent to kill the Dalek, but upon seeing the Dalek able to feel, the Doctor lowered the weapon at Rose's request. Considering all the new emotions to be sickness, the Dalek asked Rose to order it to self-destruct, preferring death to a life with emotions. She refused at first, but eventually gave the order, and the Dalek destroyed itself. And for a time, the Time War was finally over for the Metaltron Dalek and the Doctor. A Dalek that had a traumatic existence, to say the least. A hate-fueled, relentless killer that is unique as one of the few Daleks you may actually care about and feel emotion for, as a tortured, lonely survivor of a bitter conflict that it was thrown into. That is the history of the Metaltron Dalek, and when the 2005 episode aired, it was the first Dalek I'd ever seen a truly terrifying and memorable force. There's a reason they are the most iconic Doctor Who monsters, that's for sure, and I don't think a lone Dalek has been shown as such a sheer force of intelligence, death and destruction since. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to give it a like if you enjoyed it, comment your thoughts, and of course subscribe to see more Doctor Who content. And if you're a fan of 2005 Doctor Who, I've talked about a lot of the monsters from Series 1 recently to celebrate 20 years of New Who. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.